around this rivalry for a couple of seasons now. Just in your mind, what home court advantage, what's that playing in, whether your experiences in Oxford or here? Just talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, my experience in this particular rivalry is that it's a big advantage, just like it is in, you know, the other rivalries that I've been involved in. But you know, our crowd was amazing. You know, the last time we played, last Saturday, and we had a chance. Obviously, we didn't get it done, and I would imagine we'll have a very similar or better environment, considering, you know, how both teams are doing, and given that Ole Miss is coming in with an undefeated SEC record, we'll need, you know, every person, everybody that we can get to create that buzz that you know, we're looking for.
Go ahead, Paul, and then we'll go down the line.
Obviously, the opponent had a lot to do with it. You played two pretty good perimeter teams the past two games. But when you look at the film and look at the three-point defense, I know you've talked about breakdowns before, but what kind of grabs your attention with that when you see those percentages the last couple games?
Yeah, I mean, it jumps off the page at you. You know, Kentucky is very well known for their three-point marksman, and Jackson Robinson, who's a heck of a player, you know, hadn't been shooting at that clip. You know, he was 29% for the year, and then he gets 7 for 10, and that happens every night all over college basketball. It wasn't as if we were playing him as a 29% three-point shooter. That wasn't the case at all. We knew historically what a good shooter, you know, he was. And then, you know, Almanor, the same thing in that particular game, the Kentucky, you know, those two made 10 together out of what, 14, I think 7 for 10 and 3 for 4, if I'm not mistaken. So there's a big chunk of it. And again, he hadn't been shooting the ball great volume, but historically, prior to coming to Kentucky, so we treated him that way, and they, we just, and I know it sounds boring and cliche-ish, but overall, you know, it just goes back to, you know, guarding the ball. We were getting broke down at point of attack, and in the Auburn game, that was probably the most disappointing thing. Is I just didn't feel we were very prideful on the ball, and you can attribute it to a lot of things. You know, we had some distractions heading into the game. The crowd was a distraction. You know, Riley was, you know, game time decision, literally a game time decision that, you know, he made. And then, you know, this isn't any sort of excuse, but Broome, you know, not playing obviously didn't hurt them in this particular game, but I don't know what it did for the psyche of our guys. Like, oh, not that they could ever think anything was going to be easy on the road in this league, especially against a team of that caliber. But it just, from where I sat, you know, it couldn't have started any worse. And, you know, it was one of the earlier timeouts I think I've ever called. And then we had to call another one, you know, in the first half because of the run and the crowd and the way we were playing. And so we just never got our feet underneath us in that particular game. And the three-point shooting, you know, again, we just weren't great on the ball. We had some breakdowns off the ball. We had some, you know, game plan issues that didn't get into the game, which is disappointing at this point. We spent a lot of time on that, and when it doesn't get in the game, it's hard. You know, it's frustrating for all of us, including the players. But in review of the film, I mean, hats off to Auburn. I mean, they had a lot of shot makers. They have a lot of shot makers. I mean, they got multiple guys that shoot in the 40s from beyond the arc. And then, you know, it's contagious, man. You know, for the offensive team, when it gets going, everybody, you know, wants to be a part of it. And it's contagious both ways, unfortunately, because it was contagious for us. On the other hand, is we lost our confidence, I think, and we just couldn't find our way from beyond the arc.
Benjamin, the same.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the returning players on this team. Everyone thinks about Josh and Cam, and Keyshawn's gotten a lot of attention. Shawn Jones sometimes gets lost in that, but I feel like he's come along really well on the defensive end. Has sort of found his role on this team. How do you feel like he's been playing lately, and where do you feel like he can still get better?
Yeah, his game has matured, and his understanding of our scheme obviously is really, really good, given his experience here and time. And like you said, he's rounded into form to understanding, where his niche is at, and how to play and how to, be valuable for us, even though it may not all show up on a stat sheet. Even just little things like, getting an offensive rebound or driving it into the paint and then knowing that there's trees, in the lane in the SEC and not throwing up, a bad shot. Those things don't show up. Just being in the right spot, defensively, checking his man out in a religious way, like he's the best checkout guy we got. He's not the best rebounding guy we got, but he allows other people to get the rebound because he's so assignment correct on checking his own man out. And then, knowing that, the way people are defending him, he can get a rhythm three off, most possessions if needed. And, the shots that he is taking are mostly uncontested and rhythm, and he's been working on it, and, hopefully he'll start knocking some down.
Well, I'm sure you're aware that this is the first time ever both State and Ole Miss are ranked at the same time they play each other. How cool do you just think it is for both of these universities and the state to have both of these programs playing at such a high level right now?
I wasn't aware of it until about a minute before I walked in. Our esteemed SID made me aware that was the situation, and I don't know exactly what I said, but it was something like, really? It surprises me. I would have never guessed that, thunk that. It kind of amazes me, to be honest with you. All the times that they played and how many years it goes back, and for that not to happen, it is what it is. So it's cool. It's great for the state. Hopefully the environment will be off the charts. It always is, but maybe even a little more now because of that opportunity for both programs, and it'll be here soon enough.
David, go ahead, and then we'll go to Jacob.
Josh's assist turnover ratio is still leading the SEC. He's done a great job in that regard, but is his work having to have the ball in his hands so much of the time and then taking the point of defense, is that taking anything away from his offensive game, or is he's just in one of those little slumps right now?
As you know, I don't like to speak for my guys. I obviously talk to Josh on a daily basis, but we don't drill deep on that subject matter all the time. I don't know. I think people still circle his name, in red pen every single time, and he's getting the best defender in a league full of high-level athletes and defenders and coaches and game planning. And certainly, like always, with more and more games under his belt, people understand, where sweet spots are, and trying to make it as difficult as they can, on him. And then, like you mentioned, for us, with his improved vision and progression reads as a ball handler, we're asking him to do, more that way, and that's been a positive with, like you said, him leading the league in assists to turnovers, especially given the fact that, teams are game planning for him, and when he comes off the ball screen, there's usually two on the ball for an extended period of time, where, that's not always the case with the rest of our guys. So he has a little more pressure, on him, and, which maybe is one of the reasons why, his assists are up that way, because of having to give up the ball a little bit more. But the one thing with Josh is, I don't think I've ever believed in a player more than him in my entire career. And I've coached some great players, but my confidence in that young man is through the roof. And I can't speak for him, but I'd imagine our staff in our locker room feels the same way because of what's inside Josh and how he goes about his business. And it's just a great reminder that, you know, these kids are human. You know, they're not machines, they're not robots. And but again, I'll go back to what I said. I wouldn't want anyone else out there fulfilling that role for our program than Josh Hubbard.